What's up guys? Welcome back. If you guys are new here, my name is Milan. In today's video, we're going to be talking about brakes. So given that your brake lines are properly bled and you don't have any faulty parts in the car, there's still going to be some areas that you're going to be able to upgrade to get more performance out of your braking system. Now, if you ever take your car and push it really hard, you're going to be able to find at its limits where the shortcomings of that system exactly are. The stock Akebono brakes on these Nissans are quite impressive. The massive 14-inch rotors paired with some large 4-piston calipers stop on a dime. The rear brakes are just as monstrous with vented 13.8-inch rotors with 2-piston calipers. When you stomp on the brakes, the car stops nearly immediately. The ABS system usually pulsates because the tires are more often than not the weak point of the system. So given that this entire braking system is bone stock, I have stock calipers, stock lines, stock everything else, you can feel a little bit of squishiness and softness to the pedal. 2 simple upgrades can be done to your car to give you more driver confidence while pushing your braking system. So this first upgrade can be done to every car on the road. To get started, we need to raise the car in the air and safely put it on jack stands since we need to remove the wheels. Using either an impact gun or hand tools, remove all the lug nuts fastening the wheels in place. This will then give us enough space to complete the first upgrade, which is upgrading the brake lines. Stock brake lines found on regular cars are made from reinforced rubber, which is decent for the first couple years of street use, but after prolonged use and aggressive driving, the rubber degrades and the lines will expand under pressure, which means that you're going to lose some braking force. The most common remedy to this is swapping out the lines for ones that are further reinforced by stainless steel. The sheathing won't allow the rubber to expand to the same degree, which means the pedal force is being translated almost entirely to clamping pressure on the brake pads. With the wheels removed, you can see we have the stock brake line that connects from the back side of the caliper. It goes around the spindle in a hard line, then attaches to a soft rubber line that connects to the hard lines found on the body. The entire soft and hard line combination that is attached in the spindle area will be getting replaced with a single piece of stainless steel line which offers much less expansion, which is very similar to a hard line. These lines here are from a company called StopTech. You've probably heard of them before as they sell replacement performance pads and rotors for most street cars along with full-out upgraded big brake kits. I'm particularly interested in their stainless steel braided brake lines, which they sell per axle. So this pair here is for the fronts, where these ones are for the rears. Now here's just a quick tip. Before you guys get started, ensure that you have new fluid and a way to bleed the brake system after you take the lines out and replace them with these ones here. So because we're going to be changing out all the lines and we're going to be taking the fluid out of them, we have to replace it. And because we're taking it out, we're going to need to have new copper washers for the banjo bolts. So if you guys purchase the StopTech kit for your car, it will come with everything that you need. So it's going to come with the lines, it's going to come with new banjo bolts, new washers. So we're going to have the lines and the hardware for the front, and then same thing for the rear. So let's get started with working on the front of the car. So for a quick summary, to remove the factory lines, you have to disconnect the line on both ends, unhook it from the spindle, and then bleed the lines with new brake fluid. For this car, you'll need a 12mm socket and a 10mm flare nut wrench to safely remove the bolts. The flare nut wrenches are especially important in preventing the nuts on the brake lines from stripping under torque. Begin by removing the 12mm bolt holding the small hard line to the spindle. Then go over all the brake line nuts and crack them loose to ensure that the line isn't seized to the nut. Now they're all going to be 10 mils. With a bucket or something underneath the lines, you can then disconnect all the brake line fittings and remove all the spring clips fastening the lines in place. I find that you can easily remove the spring clips using a pair of channel locks. Following that, you can remove the line from the car. Some brake fluid will leak out, so try to do this procedure rather quickly. Grab the new line and fasten it in the same orientation as the stock one to prevent any rubbing or wearing out. On the other end, grab the banjo bolt and a copper washer, feed it through the brake line, followed by the other copper washer, and then screw it into the brake caliper. Torque the banjo bolt to 12 foot-pounds. The caliper is aluminum and the bolt is steel, so if it's over-torqued, you may strip the caliper. So with everything connected in place and then zip tied to the old brake caliper hose location, everything is then going to be good to go. The brakes still need to be bled, however the rear lines need to be swapped out before we can get that done. The rear StopTech lines comes with all the same goodies that we need for the install. So the lines themselves, the banjo bolts, the copper washers, and the replacement dust boots for the bleeder screws. Just like the fronts, the multi-piece lines are to be replaced by standard one-piece stainless lines. So for the rear line that's found over here, we need to disconnect it at the top, remove the 2 bolts that are securing to the bracket, and then finally the hard line that's connecting up to the caliper. Now here's just a little tip. Before removing each one of these little nuts that are found on the brake line, to ensure that the dirt that's found in between the nut and the line itself moves rather freely, you can spray it with penetrating fluid or some kind of soap formula. That's what I have right here. And you just let it penetrate, so inside there, all that dirt isn't going to want to go ahead and corrode or damage the coating that is on the line. So then using your 10 mil, you're going to crack this loose, and it basically comes off like butter. Super easy. So we're going to tighten that back up, and then we're going to do the same thing by cracking the line that's found down here at the caliper. So keep in mind, lefty-loosey is reversed when the bolt is facing to you, so I need to turn this down, just like that. Okay, so it moves freely, that's good. Following that is going to be the 2 12mm bolts. Using the same channel locks as before, remove the spring clip, spray a bit of parts cleaner or soapy water to soften up the dirt, and then fully loosen and remove the OEM brake line. The new line goes in just like the fronts. So attach it to the body side first by a couple threads, and then with the banjo bolt and both washers on the other end, screw the banjo bolt into the caliper. Grab the spring clip to hold the line into place and give it a couple taps with a hammer until it's fully seated. There isn't much room to bang around with a hammer, but it can be done. Last but not least, with a flare nut wrench, tighten the brake line nut, and then with your torque wrench set to 12 foot-pounds, tighten the banjo bolt on the back side of the caliper to ensure the copper crush washers make a tight seal. It should look like this when completed. So the sponginess that you're going to get in your brake pedal is going to be coming from these rubber parts of the line. So any of these hard parts here, there's not really any kind of expansion that's going to happen inside of it, but any area here that is rubber, you're going to see that. And once you replace these with stainless ones that expand to the same amount as the hard ones, you're going to see a really great performance gain on your pedal. So it's going to be firm, you're not going to have sponginess, and given that you bleed the system properly, you're going to have a system that is going to be extremely predictable and very linear. So if you guys remember from the thumbnail, there were 2 parts to what I included in it. There were brake lines, and there's also this device that I have right here. So after you install these lines, and let's say you're stomping on the brakes, there's still something in the system that's going to give you some sort of deflection. Can you guess what that is? It's your firewall. Yes, you heard me right. So the brake master cylinder that's attached to the firewall, when you stomp on your brakes, you're literally pushing the firewall away from you. So in order to keep it so that your brake pedal feels firm and it doesn't move, is you're going to install something like this. This here is a brace. So this bolts up to inside the engine bay and it secures the master cylinder in place. So when you press the brake pedal, the firewall itself doesn't flex. Let me show you how easy it is to install this. So in the engine bay on the driver's side, you'll find your brake master, the booster, and the clutch reservoir all found underneath this cover. So because the firewall isn't reinforced to withstand essentially track spec brakes, it deflects under hard pedal force. To install this brace from Z1 Motorsports, you'll need to remove a couple plastic clips, unplug 2 electrical connectors and a vacuum line, along with needing a fancy long reach ball end hex bit to install the hardware for this brace. So to get this job done, the plastic trim piece up top has to come out to give you enough space. There's going to be a couple clips holding it and bracing it to the body. Next up, there's going to be 4 of these little stickers that are covering some threaded bolt holes, so you have to take them off. That's where you'll be installing the hardware to secure the brace to the body. It helps if you disconnect the 2 electrical connectors that are attached to the master cylinder, along with the vacuum hose and clamp, as it's a very tight space to work with. Following that, with the brace and the bolt and nut attached just like this, slide it down into the car. It's going to be pretty difficult to get the bolts initially threaded into each location, so if you put a little bit of tape on the end of the hex bit first, it will prevent the bolt from falling into the abyss. Thankfully though, if you drop one of the bolts into this area, you can recover it by using a magnet. Using a 5mm bit and an extension, you can finesse the bolt into place by placing the hex bit in between both of the brake lines that are coming off of the master cylinder. With all 3 bolts hand tight, you can then adjust the bolt on the brace to butt right up against the master itself. The more pressure you can put on it, the less the firewall will deflect under load. Then use the jam nut and tighten it up against the brace so the bolt won't back off while you're driving. Getting all this on camera was very difficult considering how tight this space is, but I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Follow it up by attaching all the parts that we originally disconnected, like the 2 connectors, the vacuum line found behind the reservoir, and then the trim pieces. This is what it should look like after it's installed. It should be touching the flat part of the master at all times. So that there will pretty much complete the install for this. So we have different lines installed front and back, and we have that new brace found up top in the engine bay. So both of those paired are going to make the brake pedal not only linear, but it's going to be consistent. You're not going to have any sponginess to it, and it's going to be giving you much more driver confidence while you're driving your vehicle. So if you guys want to take it to the track, you just like driving it aggressively down some back roads, this mod is perfect for you. Now, I don't think you'll be able to get this job done without these long reach ball-ended sockets. So these Allen sockets, you need these things to do the brace. But short from that, the lines are super easy. All you gotta do is bleed the fluids, bleed the brakes, and put the wheels back on, and you're pretty much set. So I've got a little mini series of videos coming out for you guys soon. So I have another video following this regarding extended studs, spacers, and different wheels and tires for this car. Stay tuned. If you guys like the video and you guys want to share it with your friends, by all means, go for it. Give it a like. You know, guys do all that fun stuff. If you guys have any further questions, comment section's down there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.